I got a message the other day, guys. It said, Bill, I feel like quitting jiu-jitsu, but what do you recommend? Guys, my name is Bill Jones. I'm the head instructor of Top Level Martial Arts in beautiful downtown Cuyahoga Falls. I'm a black belt under Master Pedro Sauer, and you're watching Professor's Corner. Thank you. Please like, comment, subscribe. What do you recommend to someone who's thinking about quitting jiu-jitsu? Why do you stick with it? All right. So this person writes that, and I said, well, number one, you're writing me because you don't want to quit. If you wanted to quit, I've had tons of people quit over the years. Every single month, people quit jiu-jitsu. It's just part of being a business. There's turnover. There's attrition that's just natural and part of it. Every month, someone quits. Never do they say, hey, I'm thinking of quitting. What do you think? If you're asking me that question, that tells me you don't want to quit, but you're unmotivated. You're having problems with the motivation of jiu-jitsu. Maybe you're getting beat a lot recently. Maybe you're having some doubts about your skill level, about your progress. So that's what you're really asking me when you write me this letter and say, hey, I'm thinking of quitting. You're really saying, convince me not to quit because I don't want to. And I don't mind doing that for people. I really don't. If you're the kind of person who's watching this right now and you're like, man, I've definitely had my doubts about how I'm doing and where my skill's at, and you know, I thought I was doing good, but then I rolled the guy that I normally trash, and he gave me a hell of a time, and man, it's been a real problem. I understand where you're coming from with that. Everybody who does jiu-jitsu understands where you're coming from with that. It will happen forever. And I'm going to be honest, the better you get, especially up into the black belt level, the more it's going to happen. I can tell you that I have black belts who've trained under me 4 years after me, that now I go up to their place, I train with them, and every once in a while they get me, and I'm like, oh, why did that happen? How did I let that move happen? But you learn to turn it around quicker as a higher rank, right? So as a higher rank, rather than like getting tapped by the guy and then getting frustrated and again, and then you get tapped by him again, you say, okay, he got me with that move, file it, cool, won't happen again now, I recognize the setup, let's do it again, let's train, and you stay calm, and you learn to overcome that in a moment-to-moment basis versus a day-to-day or week-to-week or month-to-month basis. I would say that's one of the largest differences between a black belt and a white belt, is how long it takes us to adapt and overcome to the situation we're given. 99% of that is because of experience. I've been in this situation before. I've been in a situation where I'm having a bad day. I understand that not letting it get to me is the biggest thing I can do, and so I move on and I have a good day anyway. Or even if everybody taps me, maybe I'm trying a new move, and guys, this happens to black belts too. I'm trying a new move and I'm like, okay, good, I made it hit on this guy who's only been training 6 months, and so the next thing I'll do, I'll go to a blue belt, and man, I can't make it work on a blue belt to save my life. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? Right? You feel like it's a problem with you. And it's just how we learn. It's just our brain. That's the way our brains are, and it sucks. It's no fun, because the problem is our brain thinks faster than it adapts. Like it wants to adapt, but to do that, it needs to create pathways, right? And so even though your mind might be thinking, okay, I can do this move, I've got to do step A, step B, step C, but when you try to do them, like your body just doesn't move the way you mean for it to. And one of the best things you can do in those situations is come back the next day. And I know that sounds cliche, just train, right? But you come back the next day and try that move again. And then come back the day after that and try that move again. And what you're going to find is your body will be doing it better, even on a day-to-day basis, than it did the first day. Day 3 will be way better than day 1. But if you try a technique or a situation in day 1 and it doesn't work, and then you try it and then you never try it again because it didn't work, of course it's never going to be better. But when you try it in day 1 and you realize, oh man, it's not doing it for me, and then you try it in day 2 and day 3 and day 10, you're going to find that move starts to work. And it starts to work because your brain is building pathways to tell your body, move like this. And that's a huge part of the learning of jiu-jitsu. You'll come in and you'll be like, think about shrimping. For those of you who've trained more than 3 months. Day one, you couldn't shrimp to save your life. 99% of you cannot shrimp to save your life day one. But I'm pretty sure if you've been training 3 months and I say, hey, show me a shrimp, you're going to be like, boop, 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 right down the mat, and it's not going to be a problem. It's because your brain needs to build those pathways. It's a weird, unique movement. Now you add the component of another human on top of you, and then add the component of not only is that person on you, but they're also resisting and holding you and pinning you down. Yeah, that's going to be a challenge. So that's number one, is that you need to, number two is just you need to come and just train. Make the time. The next thing I always ask when people say that. So first thing I say is, look, you're asking me because you don't actually want to quit. Let's admit that. Otherwise, you wouldn't ask. You would just quit. And number two is that you've probably had an experience or a day or maybe even a week or a month that was like really low. Like you're like, man, I'm just not getting anywhere. So we talked about that a little bit. You got to just train. And number four is the mental component of jiu-jitsu. And I think that's the hardest thing to learn because it is learned. Let me give you a great example of how our brains can hold us back in certain situations. How many of you have met someone who is very wealthy? And one of the first things you say after you meet them, like you're talking to your friends or whatever, you're like, yeah, you know, I met so-and-so. And that dude is so down to earth, such a nice guy. And you're for some reason surprised by that. So like if I came up to you and I said, hey, this is my friend Jim, and you're like, oh, cool, hey, Jim, like your first thought wouldn't be, oh, this is going to be a bad human being. You'd be like, oh, my friend Bill introduced me to his friend Jim. I expect Jim to be a well-adjusted, kind human being. And when he is, you're not surprised. But for some reason, when we meet a wealthy person, we're surprised that they're kind, normal human beings, well-adjusted. Like they want to drink a beer with you just like everybody else. And that comes from our mindset and kind of what society tells us to do. Like the stereotype of wealthy people is that they're uppity and their nose is in the air and Mimsy, let's get on the yacht. Let's get on the yacht and laugh at the commoners. Right? That's like the mental picture that we paint for ourselves. So what happens? You start, even though you think you want to be wealthy, you start not liking that. And who wants to be someone they don't like? Nobody. Nobody wants to be someone they don't like. So if your mental picture of someone wealthy is someone that you don't like, you will never be wealthy. It's that simple. You will not let yourself gain wealth. And you can argue with me about that all you want, but if that's someone you don't like, now what will happen is you'll be like, okay, I want to be wealthy, but I'm not going to be like that. Right? Like I'm not going to be that stereotype. That's fine. You'll do fine. You'll do great. So, likewise, we tend to give up on things. We tend to draw this negative picture about, and where I was going with that was how our brain and our visions can cloud us and hold us back. And so, you'll have trouble with a technique, and nobody wants to be the guy who can't do the move, right? Nobody wants to be that guy. And so the minute you think you're that guy and you feel like you're not getting better, you want to quit. You want to say, oh, I'm going to stop. And you're not that guy. That guy is the guy who either quits or stops. Now you became that guy by your actions, right? I couldn't get the moves, so I stopped. I quit. It was too hard. And that's something I never wanted to be. Like, I never wanted to be the quitter. Man, in the military, especially going through like basic training, AIT, BNOC, all these things, like, and then in a war, there's multiple times you want to quit. But then you decide, I don't want to be the quitter. I want to be the person that people look toward. That they're like, oh man, he never quits, dude. That guy, he just keeps going. He's a machine. And that's who I always wanted to be. Now, I failed at that from time to time. Of course, everybody does. And it's the same thing in jiu-jitsu and martial arts in general, is I never wanted to be the one who quit. I don't even like losing. I hate losing. But I understand it's part of what needs to happen to grow. The last tournament I was in, I lost. I hated it. I'm still learning from it. I mean, I still watch the videos, see, oh, he did this. I should stop it here. You know, like one 45-second match, and I've learned months worth of information from it. But I do that because I understand that if I quit, I won't get better. And if you're trying to get better by quitting, you're taking the wrong approach. I don't understand how that's going to work. Now, if you had written me and said, yeah, I hate this, it's not fun for me, I don't like rolling around, the sweat is gross, all this kind of stuff, what can you say? It's like, well, if you hate it, why are you doing it? But most people don't write me for that reason. They say, I want to quit, but I don't know what to do. And it's like, well, then don't quit. Just don't quit. I want to quit, or I don't want to quit, but I don't have a lot of time for it. Make the time. And I mean that. You need to talk to your bosses. You need to talk to your spouses. You need to talk to everybody and say, this is something that's important in my life. I need this. And if your spouse doesn't want you to do something that's important to you, man, I don't know. That's a relationship problem in my mind. But, like, if something is that important, people who love you and who care for your well-being will want you to do it. Your bosses will want you to do it. Now, they aren't going to be like, yeah, you can leave work anytime and just go. We don't care if you do your work or not. You got to do your work. You got to be solid. You got to be a valuable employee. But they're going to want you to do it because they're going to say, this dude's a valuable employee. He does this thing that he says is really important to him, and when he does it, he's a valuable employee. So obviously there's a connection there. By the way, if you're an employer, think about these things. Like, what time are you giving your students, or your employees? Are you demanding too much of them? Anyway, guys, that's what I've got for today. I hope that you find that helpful. If you do, leave a like, comment, subscribe. 5 tips is coming up next. Stay tuned. Talk to you later. All right, guys, so for today's 5 details, I'm going to talk about the Kimura from Side Control. I see this done a lot. You good? All right, guys, I see this move a lot. We're going to talk today about the 5 tiny details about the Kimura from Side Control. It's a common technique, but I think it's a technique that a lot of people miss and could do better. So check it out. Can I borrow you, Ed? Yes. Let's scoot this way just a little bit, man. And I'm going to have you turn so your head's coming toward me. This way. Yes. Perfect. Just like that. All right, so the first thing I notice when this happens, and actually we're going to scoot back this way just a little bit more. I want to make sure we're on camera. Yeah, that's pretty good. Is people trying this move while the person's still flat on their back. And you need to get the guy to sit up a little bit. And the easiest way to do that is to let them take an underhook and try to come up from like a single leg or whatnot. So if I'm in side control, he gets his underhook over here. Yeah, see how he wants to come up? That's when I'll just step over his head and I pinch his arm. And I'm going to put a wedge behind him, which I'll show you in just a second. But that's the first thing, is pinch the arm, let him come up, and now I have easy access to all of this stuff. I'm gonna be moving you around a lot, Ed. I'm sorry. Just put your feet going toward the camera this time, because what I want them to see, and scoot this way. Perfect. Now I want you to pay attention to the wedge I make with my leg behind him, because I see a lot of people try this from their knees. This is mistake number 2. So he puts his underhook in, boom, I sit up, and I see a lot of people do this with their knees. Step, pinch your leg in. The reason for this is that I've created a little wedge, and it's hard for him to take his back to the ground. See what I mean? Now I can focus on getting him with my upper body and attacking his arm, as opposed to trying to hold him up with just this grip and try to like not let him fall. So that's detail number 2 that I see people do, and I think is a real big mistake. Ed, we're going to turn 90 degrees back to where you were, my man, so feet going toward that way. All right, so now let's talk about it. Once I'm up there, what do? He sticks the underhook in, he turns, I step, and I step. I always pinch with both feet, or both knees on his body. And the reason this foot is where it is, and this knee's pinching in, is the same as the one behind him, because it's hard for him to rotate forward now as well. I come under, and I get my grip. First mistake that I see people make here is that they get the grip and like shove it down. That lets him grab everything here. All right, now he's grabbing his belt, he's grabbing whatever, he might even have that arm down there still. He's grabbing arms together. But it's really tough to, it's really not a good idea that when you come in here, you let him have a grip. But let's say you do. The next mistake I see a lot is when people are trying to break this grip, they pull up. That's going to be hard. I could Ed has a bad shoulder right now, so I'm not going to demonstrate it, but I could probably do a deadlift on this arm, and it's just going to lift him up and not break his grip. Most of this pull ends up here at the shoulder because that's what you're closer to. So instead of pulling up, or even worse, pushing backwards, you're not going to phase his hand through his body. You want to pull it out this way. The grip is made to be strong with this pull, and it certainly doesn't even need a grip that way. But if I just turn and drive it out, you can do that pretty hard, pretty fast, and everybody can move forward fast. So it's not even going to hurt him. Now, as I try to finish this, the next thing I see is people keeping it low, like way back here behind his back. Keep it up on you. I always say that like I'm a tank turret, and and this is my gun. I'm trying to shoot out. Now I just torque my body, and he submits. If we look at this without being on the ground, just come to a seated or a kneeling position, something like that. And let's face the camera so I can see the angle. I want his arm, get parallel with it for me. I don't want his arm down like this. Look, Ed, take your hand to your back pocket. Everybody can do this. I mean, you have back pockets for a reason. So it doesn't hurt him when you put it down like this. You want this arm in alignment up here. Okay, so that like his elbow is in line with his shoulder, which is in line with his neck. And then, of course, your pressure is coming this way. All right? So those are some details on the Kimura from Side Control that have really helped me over the years tighten it up and make it a high percentage move. I hope you find that helpful. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, give us a like and a subscribe. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.